What celebrity did bad things but everyone forgot what they did because they're famous? George Wallace, the infamous pro-segregation governor of Alabama in the 60s, did not inform his wife that her doctor diagnosed her with cancer. Doctors during this time often told patients' relatives of their cancer diagnosis instead of the patient, especially if the patient was female. The reason was that she was running for governor as a surrogate for him, since he had reached his term limits, and he thought that the diagnosis would negatively affect her chances of winning. She ended up finding out about it 4 years later during a visit to a gynecologist, but unfortunately the cancer had progressed to the point that she died from it 3 years after learning that she had cancer and that her husband had known about it. He ended up successfully getting the term limits repealed and went on to serve a few more terms as governor. People forget about this, I'm assuming, because of all of the other shitty things he did. Edit. Her name was Lurleen Wallace, for those interested. Tom Cruise is the celebrity face for a massive cult that kidnaps, rapes, and is likely involved in human trafficking and child marriages. The cult that outlawed the fucking eyes. But yeah, Mission Impossible was cool, I guess. It's honestly so terrifying. If anyone wants to look this up, look up Lyra Mini. She openly talks about what happened while she was in the cult and actually has stories of Tom Cruise and being a celebrity in Scientology. The scariest part is the length they've gone to in an attempt to silence her and discredit the documentary. They really don't want the general public to know about the horrors that go on in their churches. Is no one gonna mention Caitlyn Jenner hitting that pregnant woman and forcing her into traffic, then getting the Woman of the Year award? I guess I remembered that wrong. Turns out it was an elderly woman, and the woman died when she was hit by a Hummer. Also, remember that Brendan Schaub, the millionaire podcaster slash comedian, spit in someone's face and then threw them through a sliding glass door because they asked him to stop eating his food? Look into it. https://streamable.com/cmbp UTM_SOURC=SHARE and UTM_MEDIUM=IOS_APP and UTM_NAME=IOSSMF. On an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, comedian Nikki Glaser talked about the recent Comedy Central Alec Baldwin roast in which Caitlyn Jenner participated. Nikki had planned to roast Jenner with a bunch of jokes about how Jenner had killed someone, but Jenner refused to participate in the roast if those jokes were made. Chris Brown and R. Kelly. Chris Schold lost his career for what he did, right? I can't believe people still support him, and other artists still want to work with him. Fuck Lil Dicky. I really liked him as an artist, then he basically made a song about how great Chris Brown is. Seriously? Lil Dicky seems to have run out of his 15 minutes of fame. I was still a huge fan when that video came out. I just remembered being super hype about a new Lil Dicky song. It had been a minute and I figured a new album was coming soon. And then it was about Chris Brown. It wasn't just that Chris Brown was featured on the song either. If he had just done a quick hook, then maybe it would have been okay. But the whole song is praising how awesome it would be to be Chris Brown. Like WTF. I can't imagine someone with a good conscience sitting down at a table to write that song. Like, brainstorming ideas for lyrics about the awesome Chris Brown. SMFH. I'm guessing that song bombed and got his album canned/pushed back till people forget. I hate Chris Brown. How is someone who is literally banned from entering multiple countries allowed to still be a platinum recording artist in America? Brown was driving a vehicle with Robin F. as the front passenger on an unknown street in Los Angeles. Robin F. picked up Brown's cellular phone and observed a 3-page text message from a woman who Brown had a previous sexual relationship with. A verbal argument ensued, and Brown pulled the vehicle over on an unknown street, reached over Robin F. with his right hand, opened the car door, and attempted to force her out. Brown was unable to force Robin F. out of the vehicle because she was wearing a seatbelt. When he could not force her to exit, he took his right hand and shoved her head against the passenger window of the vehicle, causing an approximate 1-inch raised circular contusion. Robin F. turned to face Brown, and he punched her in the left eye with his right hand. He then drove away in the vehicle and continued to punch her in the face with his right hand while steering the vehicle with his left hand. The assault caused Robin F.'s mouth to fill with blood to splatter all over her clothing and the interior of the vehicle. Brown looked at Robin F. and stated, "I'm going to beat the out of you when we get home. You wait and see." The detective said Robin F. then used her cell phone to call her personal assistant Jennifer Rossales, who did not answer. Robin F. pretended to talk to her and stated, "I'm on my way home. Make sure the police are there when I get there." After Robin F. faked the call, Brown looked at her and stated, "You just did the stupidest thing ever. Now I'm really going to kill you." Brown resumed punching Robin F., and she interlocked her fingers behind her head and brought her elbows forward to protect her face. She then bent over at the waist, placing her elbows and face near her lap in an attempt to protect her face and head from the barrage of punches being levied upon her by Brown. Brown continued to punch Robin F. on her left arm and hand, causing her to suffer a contusion on her left triceps. That was approximately 2 inches in diameter and numerous contusions on her left hand. Robin F. then attempted to send a text message to her other personal assistant, Melissa Ford. Brown snatched the cellular telephone out of her hand and threw it out of the window onto an unknown street. Brown continued driving, and Robin F. observed his cellular telephone sitting in his lap. She picked up the cellular telephone with her left hand, and before she could make a call he placed her in a headlock with his right hand and continued to drive the vehicle with his left hand. Brown pulled Robin F. close to him and bit her on her left ear. She was able to feel the vehicle swerving from right to left as Brown sped away. He stopped the vehicle in front of 333 North June Street and Robin F. turned off the car, removed the key from the ignition, and sat on it. Brown did not know what she did with the key and began punching her in the face and arms. He then placed her in a headlock, positioning the front of her throat between his bicep and forearm. Brown began applying pressure to Robin F.'s left and right carotid arteries, causing her to be unable to breathe, and she began to lose consciousness. She reached up with her left hand and began attempting to gouge his eyes in an attempt to free herself. Brown bit her left ring and middle fingers and then released her. While Brown continued to punch her, she turned around and placed her back against the passenger door. She brought her knees to her chest, placed her feet against Brown's body, and began pushing him away. Brown continued to punch her on the legs and feet, causing several contusions. Robin F. began screaming for help, and Brown exited the vehicle and walked away. A resident in the neighborhood heard Robin F.'s plea for help and called 911, causing a police response. An investigation was conducted, and Robin F. was issued a domestic violence emergency protective order. Edit: I'm not the bot. Credit to /u/Takindali, who I copied it from, and the bot from r/Francosian that says this anytime Chris Brown is mentioned. Salman Khan, a very famous Indian actor. Edit: it's not the guy from Khan Academy. He killed someone by driving his car over them. I forget the specifics, but he drove his car over one or more people who were sleeping on the side of the road, killing at least one of them. He carried on with his acting career and on Indian TV because he is famous. Andy Dick has sexually assaulted people an absurd amount of times and also got Phil Hartman's wife back into drugs, which led to her murdering Hartman in an intoxicated state. You would think he would have been ruined in the #METOO movement, but apparently we pass it off like that's classic Andy Dick. Edit to those saying Andy Dick doesn't really get a pass because everyone hates him. He's not in prison, which is where anyone else would end up for doing half the things he did, so I'd call that a huge pass. I feel like everyone hates Andy Dick. Like, is there anyone that actually does give Andy Dick the pass? Jerry Seinfeld dated a 17-year-old girl in high school when he was 39 years old. Edit. I know it isn't illegal. He had money, fame, and was at the height of his show. And he chooses to date a 17-year-old who is still in high school? It might not be illegal and as bad as murder / rape / kidnapping / etc. But it's still pretty scummy. Funky bass. Seinfeld. So I met someone at the park. George. Do these glasses make my face look fat? Elaine. You met someone at the park. George. You shouldn't go to the park. Too many panhandlers. Jerry. She wasn't a panhandler. George. George. Who? Elaine. The girl at the park. George. I wasn't listening. These glasses. Elaine. So tell me about her. Jerry. Her name is Claudia. She's mumbles. Elaine. What's that? You're mumbling. Jerry. She might have been 17. Elaine. Jerry. Jerry. High pitched. I didn't know at the time. George. Imagine meeting her parents. It's awkward enough if she was legal aged. Jerry. She is. Kramer bursts in. Audience goes wild. Kramer. That's just great. I'm banned from the Apollo Theater. Funky bass. There was that time James Franco tried to fuck a teenager. After she posted the exchange on social media of her telling him how old she was and him not caring and still wanting to see her, all he had to do was go on a few morning talk shows a couple days later and say, "You don't always know who you're talking to online," and everyone instantly forgot about it. He framed it like he was the one who was deceived, and people just let it slide, even though that clearly wasn't the case. Here's a list I compiled earlier this year. Jimmy Page was 26 when he started calling 14-year-old Lori Maddox his girlfriend. Mick Jagger had a few rounds with Maddox around the same time. Also of the Rolling Stones, Bill Wyman started dating 13-year-old Mandy Smith when he was 47. He got her mother's permission. Steven Tyler convinced the mother of 16-year-old Julia Holcomb to make him her legal guardian, then snorted blow from next to her hospital bed while she was having an abortion. David Bowie, the beloved, managed to get Lori Maddox's virginity and got her to bring her 15-year-old friend along, in addition to many other underage girls. Edit. Apparently this one is hotly contested. I want to believe David was better than that, but I'm leaving it in with this caveat, because I'm on mobile and can't prove one way or the other right now. Jerry Lee Lewis of course married his 13-year-old cousin. She still believed in Santa on their honeymoon. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll himself, was routinely in trouble with underage girls, and even the fabled romance with Priscilla is a tale of sexual interference. She was 14 when they met. Chuck Berry was arrested for crossing state lines with a 14-year-old prostitute. He was also recording women in the washroom of the restaurant he owned. Courtney Love says she gave Ted Nugent a blowjob when she was 12. He also adopted a 17-year-old so he could bang her without getting charged with kidnapping. He even wrote a song about avoiding pedophilia charges. Anthony Kiedis, Red Hot Chili Peppers, wrote songs about it too. Catholic schoolgirl's rule is about his hooking up with a 14-year-old at 23. Iggy Pop also wrote songs about sleeping with 13-year-olds too. Check out the lyrics to Look Away. Marvin Gaye knocked up his wife's 15-year-old niece. Don Henley, the Eagles, was charged after paramedics found him with two naked girls, aged 15 and 16.